Hey friends, this is Jeff. 3 quick announcements. 1, we have released the first 3 chapters of our upcoming book, Around the Circle, on Patreon. This link is in the show notes if you are interested. 2, if you get a lot out of this podcast and our material, do check out our work on Patreon. In the coming months, we will be releasing 9 interviews with the most informed people we know about their type and number. These will be deep dives into your type, with those who have lived in that type for many, many years, and you will be able to easily listen to them in your podcast feed. And 3, coming in January, we will be releasing our first college-style class on Patreon. This will be a robust introduction to the material. It'll be both video and audio. All of this is upcoming material, so if you sign up before January, as a huge thanks from us, we will send you a signed copy both of our upcoming book, Around the Circle, and also a signed first edition of my first book, 7. We appreciate you. We appreciate your time and support. And now we're going to pick up the second half of our discussion with therapist Michael Shahan. I'm Jeff Cook.
And I'm TJ Wilson.
And this is Around the Circle.
I'm walking slowly. I'm taking my time. All I could talking is starting to rhyme. I'm letting go of lonely, letting go of strife. I just can't get enough of this beautiful life.
All right, to flip the tables, we're going to let you spit out some questions and we'll see how this goes.
Yeah, hopefully these are okay. I spent all sorts of time wondering if these were good questions or if they were what you expected, which again, very
Shocking.
6. Yeah, right. I was worried that this would go wrong and I was doing it wrong and weird. So this is one of my biggest questions that's come out of this. How does the discomfort of a 6 around conflict differ from the discomfort of a 9 around conflict?
Ooh.
Because I'm wondering if those are very different experiences and I didn't realize it before.
Well, the versions that we talk about in my house between my 6 partner and I don't want to fight about it because I will not process the fight well. I know that I'll say things that are inappropriate and our fight will be bad and it'll make me feel sick in my stomach. My partner, who is a 6, doesn't want to get in trouble.
Okay.
Like as a 9, my aversion to conflict has nothing to do with whether I'm right or not. Her version of conflict is wrapped up in if she's wrong, she's doing it wrong and she's going to be punished.
And you even use very visceral words. You said, I feel it in my stomach. I feel it's a very
Yes.
from what I've heard asked this question, it's a very visceral experience for 9 in a way that it isn't for 6s.
I literally feel it in my body. She does not feel it in her body.
Okay. Sure.
Yeah, I love that. I hear the 9's gonna be more isolating, and the 6 is gonna process relationally those situations.
Yep.
Yeah, it's just very anxious, almost even the very anxious attachment versus avoidant attachment kind of look. Where 9's I'm just gonna go away and I don't want to do this. Whereas the 6 we need to wow, that's good.
Yeah.
What is something you wish more people understood about the Enneagram?
And it really is a cult. Everybody should know. I mean, our marketing, we just might as well embrace it.
Sure. Okay. Well, I'm glad you heard it here. You heard it first here, folks. Finally, they're coming out with it.
Mine is real straightforward. That the best understanding is that it's a theory about motive. If you can package it that way, then there's all sorts of ways to embrace it that are both scientific and spiritual. Because motive itself is one of those elements of our inner life that touches the physical and it touches the immaterial, and it's just a great. I love that space.
Yeah, my biggest thing I think is that I want people to know that it's about self-work. It's not about self-better getting. It's not 50 ways to increase your financial portfolio. It's not like this is going to fix your marriage. It's at the core of it is about understanding yourself better so that you can become a better human. And if it means that you get all of these other things that self-help books tend to offer, then great, but that's not what it's for. It's not going to it will make you better if you get into it. It will not be a magic bullet for any of your problems.
Wow. Yeah. That's I do the same. I get in the same thing with meditation with people in a lot of ways. Like to teach it, it's not going to like make you better right away. If you go into it thinking this is going to make me better and fix me, like that's not actually what it's. But like, right, you're going to get more stuck. But when you actually recognize and open up and see what's there, then it likely will lead you down that. Yeah. It's a very similar thing. It's a nuance.
You will find you have grown significantly, but you won't know that until you've already done all of it.
Sure. I like that a lot. That makes sense. So next question, I spoke to this a little bit earlier. What is your theory or your thoughts, if anything, on counter types? Are they unhelpful? Are they helpful, or some of each? I'm curious.
My gut with counter types is that we have a misstep. Our take on counter types, we have a misstep when we use the instincts to type people. What instincts are gears. We're driving a car, you're in first gear, second gear, third gear, and you shift according to where you are in the world. And sometimes you get real comfortable in one of the gears and even really utilize that gear to get the things that you want most. What the counter type move is, this is a balancing move. So sixes are a perfect example. You might be filled with anxiety. If you move into the self-pres space, you shift into there, it's going to double down a little bit on that anxiety. Whereas if I shift into the sexual subtype bonding space, there's a little bit of energy there that confronts the anxiety. That's like, I'm going to push in and do the thing that I'm afraid of anyway. And so I think if you were to look at all the quote unquote, the counter types, what you would see is that this is a balancing move for the person.
So you're saying like it's I guess I mean more specifically, like, does it make somebody look very different than their other people from their number? Kind of that kind of like, is that like a real thing? Does it actually happen, or was I just mistyping? Like I thought I was different than a 9, but I wasn't. You know what I mean?
Do you want to take that, Teach?
Yeah, I think that like the counter types are really helpful when they're real, but they're not helpful if they're not real. So if you were actually a like really heavily leaned into that instinct of 9 and like just lived in that social 9 place, that is an important thing to know, that your instinct is pushing you into like a much more active, but it also provides the opportunity for giving an excuse when you are mistyping. Right?
Sure. Yes.
So yeah, I think that Jeff said it better than I am about to, but like when they are needed, it's really helpful. When they're not needed, they could potentially do.
Yeah, it's very polarizing, maybe.
Yeah.
So like counter types can be a very polarizing thing. Maybe it's a good way to put that.
This might be a follow-up question on this. Like, do you ever feel yourself getting reckless? You are a 6 who lives primarily in self-preservation space, but are there times where you like, no, I'm going to push in, damn the consequences? And that's the shifting of the gears. I think that's important to note.
Cool.
We don't always shift into that gear, but we can shift into that gear.
Yep.
And in my mind, that's a balancing move. It's almost like we know, man, I need to smooth out a little bit, the excess that I have. So
yeah, and I love the Russ Hudson's teaching about like strengthening our blind instinct helps relieve our dominant one. So it's not about intentionally trying not to do our dominant one. It's learning to use the repressed one, and that's actually going to fill in the gap, some of our needs that we're trying to overly get with our dominant one. Yeah, I like that language a lot. Yep. Next question.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so I've heard multiple different sixes say that they are the scapegoat of the Enneagram and that everyone projects all their bad stuff on them. Do you think there's any truth to that?
No,
I never did.
It's the ones. The ones are actually the target.
Or does everybody think their number is the target?
Probably.
8s and 9s don't.
8s don't care. Yeah.
We don't care. I'm curious if you've ever heard that or have any thoughts about that.
Yeah, you got that too.
Yeah, I have seen almost all of the 6s that I've worked with are upset about being 6s. That it is the type that is the worst one, and they do not want to be it. And I think that stems from something within the 6 type themselves. I think they see theirs the most negatively of all of the types.
Interesting. Which would lead them to do their 6th thing of projecting, and other people are saying that we're negative. Maybe it would be my argument.
But I also think that we have done a lot of disservice about how we teach 6s.
Correct. Yeah, I totally agree.
Just in general, the fear-based fear type is really easy to tease. And it is really easy to overstep that line.
Yeah.
And to tease? You mean like...
Yes.
Okay, because I've heard people that 6s can invite bullying with their personality is what I've also heard, like around that. So that would kind of like, I don't know what that is.
And I think it's both. I think it's both at the same time. They can invite bullying, and it's a lot easier for us to accidentally fall into bullying.
Yeah, I think I see those almost as the same thing. I don't think it's an actual conscious inviting of it. Like I would almost see what you said as the same thing.
Yep. So I think that those that like internal thing that's happening in 6s, they doubt themselves at the core, and we have taught and our society views fear as something to be rejected, right? Like you're not, fear is not a valuable thing to feel, and we're taught,
I think especially as a I think as a male growing up, I think that I almost even had an extra dose of that. Like to be afraid was the worst thing. I was a sissy. I was weak. Right. I think that's where a lot of my 3 came in. I'm not afraid. I'm chilled out like a 9. Like I couldn't see it because it was so out of bounds. Right. Like I shouldn't be feeling afraid.
Right. And so that being internal with 6s, they feel the worst about the way that we're improperly presenting the aspects of 6ness.
Interesting.
That's my thought on it.
Yeah.
My quick thought is I think 1s, 2s, and 6s, the reactive types, are all going to struggle with their identity in the Enneagram on these fronts because they're externally referenced and they're looking for feedback from others, and they're probably not going to get the feedback that they really, really want. And so it is the case that I could see each of those types, 1s, 2s, and 6s, all kind of, having that like a I want to prove myself and I want to be better in everybody else's eyes going on there. The only other number that really comes to my mind are 4s, who I think it kind of also can get, as it were, bullied in terms of where their motive lies and how they find their identity. It's, as TJ was saying, I think 4s can be easy to pick on.
Yeah. Whereas I think unconsciously 4s might enjoy that process more than a 6 would be my guess, at least. Like, I'm suffering, bummer, but also like awesome, like internally.
Or even like this is where I'm supposed to be, right?
Yeah, sure.
Like Eeyore is the 6. He doesn't ever feel upset that other people see him as the saddest sadness that there is.
Okay,
or as a 4. You're the 4.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah. Okay, next question. Another thing that I hear people say a lot, I'm curious on I hear more than ever 8s saying that they have a hard time with 4s. And I'm curious if you think there's something there, or you think the 8s are just the ones more outspoken about sharing and more comfortable sharing that they hate 4s, or if you think there's some sort of like reactive dynamic going on there. Like, I'm curious if you see that a lot. 8s having a really, really hard time with 4s, and 4s having a really hard time with 8s.
8s are the least comfortable talking about the sappiness of emotions.
Sure.
They are not interested in spending time there. Let's deal with the problem so that we can get back to our work, right? And the work is never emotional for 8s. The work is physical.
Yeah. Wow. Which so many opposites from a 4. And so many ways.
So opposite of 4.
Yeah. Okay.
And so the fact that 4s are in wanting to deal with the emotions first, 4s are less interested in the effect they have on the physical world, which again is just totally opposite of 8s.
Wow, that's so well said.
So you see so many 8s come to situations and like where other people are struggling and say, why don't, like, 8s just cannot understand why other people don't just do the things to solve their problems. And 4s want to feel the feelings that they're having even in the midst of the problems that they don't necessarily feel they need to solve.
Yeah,
that's so well said.
The biggest challenge I see with this relationship is 8 parents with 4 children. And it's because the 8 parent processes with action and doing things, and the child processes with emotion. The 8 parent is feeling repressed, and the 4 child is feeling dominant. The 8 parent is focused on future problems given their stance, and the 4 child is past referenced in terms of where they want to live. And that it ends up being, it can be a incredibly fruitful relationship because they are so complementary.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
But you have to understand that you're different, and you have to understand that complementariness would be the target, and what they both have going for them is authenticity. So if they can both get to the point where they're articulating who they are, and they do it directly, and they do it emotionally because they're going to solve problems with their emotions, both 4s and 8s, that would be the way through.
That's so well said. I know somebody who's a 4 and his wife's an 8, and he tells me this story that she was like feeling really sad and hating it. And she said out loud, "What is the point of sadness?" And then he said, who's a 4, said, "Sadness brings us together. It connects us, and it shows us what's important." And then she looked at him and said, "No," just like instantly. It was perfect. This beautiful thing. She's like, "Nope." It was fantastic. Like that's a perfect illustration of what you guys both just like so perfectly said.
Yeah, that's great.
Next question. Why am I seeing people use the word Enneagrams more often lately? And what's that about?
Well, it's the same thing that makes us say old Chicago's.
Internets. I'm getting on the
Pokemons.
Facebooks. There's some of us who do it ironically, intentionally, and that's because we were raised in an ironic, sarcastic environment, and that's all we know. But there are others who, like, it's just the societal thing where we put S's on the ends of things that isn't one single
Okay,
object.
Sure. And I think my biggest thing is like, why are like massive Instagram accounts doing this and nobody's saying anything about it? And is that elitist of me? I don't know. Maybe.
As a serious point, to flip this just as a philosopher, I've been fascinated by the fact that Enneagram is about the glasses through which you see everything else. But when you talk to different types about their opinion about the Enneagram, the different types are viewing the Enneagram through their type specific glasses. So I have a very 1-ish take on the Enneagram, which is quite different from the 5-ish take or the 3-ish take or the 6-ish take. So the Enneagrams, unfortunately, might emerge in terms of like, this can be great, and it can be also kind of frustrating because, especially in the Enneagram world, the scholar wants to say, this is how it is, and it's got my stamp, and and I'm selling it for $195 at this website. And this is always as scholarship proceeds, the view of the topic can kind of be kaleidoscopic at best moving forward.
Yeah. Oh, sure. And that's not actually a serious question. It's just one of those things I'm like, what are people doing? And am I going to say something about it? No.
Yes.
But am I going to continue to be frustrated with it? Probably yes. I don't know. Who knows? Yep. So another one can sort of speaking of countertypes, can 4s look happy on a regular basis? I've heard this idea like the sunny 4, and I've had 2 different clients who thought they were this 4 countertype, but then recognized that they're actually 6s. And so I'm curious if like, can a 4 exist who looks happy the majority of the time?
What'd you say, Teach?
I mean, all things are possible, right?
Sure. Okay. Sure.
I think that a 4 finding themselves contented in their life might be comfortable with expressing general happiness most of the time. I think we are in an age where you may not find very many people who are generally contented with their lives most of the time.
Okay.
Because, the world's on fire and things are hard. And if you are connected to the news in any way, it's really hard to be happy, period. My gut reaction would be to worry that person is like broken somehow. If I saw a 4 right now in my environment that was regularly presenting as happy and contented. But I don't think it's impossible.
It may be that I'm not close enough with this person, but TJ and I have a very good friend who's a 4, who's a playwright and actor, and strikes me as a very happy person. And the reason that immediately comes to my mind is this person's loved by a lot of people. And I think that they really value the sadness, can go to the spaces that are angry and the rest. But overall, in their Aristotelian sense, I feel like they're happy. The other place that my mind goes is, I wonder if 4 children aren't perhaps like a window into what that might look like.
Okay, sure. Before like that 4 pattern like really took over in a bigger way, kind of.
Yeah, before the sorrow of life smacked them in their face. Sure, and they really understood that this is the reality they are in. Yeah. Yeah, I've heard so many 4s, like, we'll say like, oh, that person's happy, or like they're clearly not a 4. Like, is that just this sort of 4 needing to be like, is that a very 4 thing to say, or is there actually some accuracy? That's just something that I wonder a lot about, honestly.
Yes, I think the answer is both.
Yeah.
Okay, sure. Like always, right? Next question. So if there was a sort of phobic and counterphobic 6 that looks so different with what they do with fear, is there a same thing for the 9 or the 6, since everything is so triadic in the Enneagram? Is there a thing that can be seen as a similar type of counterphobic, phobic, but for the 9 and the 3 in those anchor points? I'm curious if yeah.
I would assume that like the traditional counter type would be something like that. And it's again the balancing move. So the quote unquote counter type for the 3 is the self-preserving 3. And that self-preservation means you're getting off stage. It means you're moving towards a lot more self-focus and self-reference and away from other people's opinion. And so we have another very close friend who has that gear, really shifts into that self-pres 3 gear. And that's also living in some 9 space for them there, I think. So they're both self-preserving, but they're also getting a little bit off stage. And I see him really living at the high side of 9 in some spots, and so, but again, I suppose I see that as such a balancing move. TJ could speak to the 9 side there.
Well, I think we could do this all around the circle. I think there's going to be some particular aspects about like this is the place where the countertype shines, right? And I think it's in the same way that it's unfair to say that 6s are like the fear is fear type. I think it's unfair to say that 9s are the peace type, because it's not necessarily about peace, right? It's not about stillness or calm. It's about harmony. It's about things working the way that they should. And sometimes that is the opposite of peace. Like giant concert festivals should be big and chaotic, right?
Okay.
Because that's what they're supposed to be. Parades shouldn't be calm, because that's boring. That's just traffic, right? So there are scenarios where peace isn't the right thing, but that is the label that we all get. And I think like with 3s, the sort of performative aspect of 3-ness is going to be a little bit dialed back in the self-pres space,
Okay, sure, that makes sense.
I suppose on the other side, the social 9 would be the counter type, and there's something about 9s who live in that gear. When they go to work, they're different. Like they engage the world in a more active, responsible way. Responsibility is not probably the right word there, but energized. I have something to do, and I matter here. Kind of positive.
Yeah. Okay.
Shaken, getting the things done.
Yeah, that makes sense. Wait, so follow-up question on what you just said, TJ. The follow-up question: can you talk about the difference between stillness, peace, and harmony? I don't think I've ever heard that parsed out like you just did. Can you say more about that?
So I come from a pretty musical background, and like there's something about that when harmony does not necessarily mean calm. Harmony doesn't even necessarily mean what we think of when we think of the word harmony, because there are jazz harmonies that are very discordant, right?
Sure. Okay.
the point for me, from my understanding, and realistically, I'm trying to figure this out in a way to answer your question, but I won't really be able to answer your question for like 2 more years probably. But harmony being the sense that everything is working together the way it's supposed to. And that can be different in different scenarios. Like jazz can have very discordant harmonies, but it's really weird when you bring those harmonies into classical music. It's really weird when you bring those harmonies into,
it's no longer harmonious, not because it's bad in its own, but because it doesn't harmonize with the other one or work well with the other one. Interesting.
Here, right? So like
interesting.
A goblin mask is a great thing to wear from September to October, but it's not necessarily the best thing to wear in the middle of December, right? When we see people putting up Christmas lights in June, it's like, this is wrong. This shouldn't be happening.
And that's such a gut judgment. Like, this is wrong. This shouldn't be. Yeah. Wow. Right. Interesting.
This is not the right place for it. But when I see it happening in December, it's like, okay, yep. So
that's so interesting, because I think what you just said, like that type of heart, like it could be easy to show ones think things should be as they should be or whatever, but nines, I don't know if they would say that about no, I don't need that. I don't go with the flow, but like there is a need for that under there.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Yeah. I think for a 9, I thought I was looking for harmony, but I think what I was actually wanting was stillness.
Yep.
Which is what I don't have as a 6. It's like just peace, like like I would describe it as like like that, which is not what you're saying. That's more just like that finally quiet mind, feeling relaxed for once of a 6. Wow. Yeah. Okay. That makes so much sense.
Yeah. Good harmony can give me a lot of energy. And that's not the same thing as like when I need to relax, I don't want a lot of energy. But if I'm running sound at a music festival, I do want a lot of energy. And the harmony there, this is how it should be in this space.
I'm really thinking about that for a long time. That's brilliant. Thank you for parsing that out.
Yeah.
Last question. Why is your guys' book draft so good?
Oh, yay. You read the book draft.
I didn't read the whole thing, but I read a lot of it. And oh my God, I'm obsessed with how it's organized. It feels like it's all in its place. It feels harmonious to me in like just such a satisfying way. And it's just great information. Why is it so good? You have to answer it.
It's because it's taken forever and it's been overthought for literally years. So I'm glad we're for those listening and interested, 2025 we'll release our book. The hope is that we would have a way of coming to the Enneagram that shows 10 different big snapshots or answers 10 big questions about each of the types and just showcases the difference, but really spends, time with that question, what motivates you? How do you solve problems? How do you connect with other people? And so these were, as we've been doing, so we're on episode 204 now, for TJ and I, but we have spent just so much time coming to the topic and organizationally, how do you organize this, is always a question for me when I come to other people's books, because it's so easy to just say, let's just focus on the type and then do typology, as opposed to,
sure, how
is it that each of us come to the world given this element of ourselves, relationships, problem solving, etc. So I'm thrilled that that gives me a lot of energy. So thank you.
Good. It's fantastic. It really shows that you've spent a lot of time organizing it and thinking it through in that way, rather than just putting the information there. Yeah, it really shows.
Bang. Well, I will take the baton back from you. I am deeply thankful, Michael, for those of us. We notice how we finished 6 minutes ahead of time, by the way.
Yeah.
Dear listener.
Impressive.
It took us 55 minutes to figure this whole thing out because I had 3 things in my computer system that broke apparently, and still
impressive.
Made it in time. So I deeply appreciate you and your story and getting a chance to share with us and just cheering for you in your future and your new relationships. So
yeah. Thanks, guys.
So friends, it, as always, would mean the world to us if you would share this episode with somebody you love, preferably people who may be struggling with finding their own type. This would be a great thing to share. People who are 6s or 9s, I bet would love the hell out of this episode. and just anyone who's getting into conversations about the Enneagram. We presently have all kinds of new stuff being released on Patreon, which I'm going to start plugging all the time. TJ and I are going to release big things about once a month there, and it's well worth taking a look at what we have. The aforementioned book, the first 3 chapters are on Patreon right now for those who are interested in reading them. If you want to see more of our fresh material as well, you can go to YouTube, and most of TJ and I's work is going to be shifting over there. We have 2 other podcasts, Movie Typing, if you get into movies and music and doing the Enneagram deep dive there, or if you or a friend are just jumping into Enneagram, trying to find your type, perhaps want to even verify your type. Perhaps you're having an existential crisis and this might not be. Start here is a great place to just verify. No, I really am a 5. And so the Start Here podcast, look for our Enneagram symbol.
Can I plug one specific thing that I'm doing?
Please do.
So recently I recorded 9 meditations. So it's called the Embodied Enneagram. It's taken from a lot of Russ Hudson's work on the essential qualities of each number. And so what I do is like about a 5 to 10 minute meditation that connects you to the essential element of each number, sort of connecting to what makes each number that number so that you can develop a lot of empathy. And I also, in the last 5 to 10 minutes of it, I teach about that essential quality and how the loss of that turns into the pattern of the number. So what this thing that I created, it's like easily one of the favorite things I've ever created. It teaches meditating through the heart, head, and body if you watch all 9. It also helps you sort of have a more embodied experience of what it's like to be the other types and what they struggle with. And it also connects you to the sort of deeper lost part of you that you've lost growing up as your personality developed. And it's called the Embodied Enneagram. It's a 9-video series. It's probably the favorite thing I've ever created. And I would just highly, highly recommend people checking that out.
And where do you find that?
On my website, michaelshahan.com. You can either, you can buy them individually if you want, but how I created it was to buy the whole thing as a package, because you get a lot of all the centers and everything as well. But even buying them individually can be really helpful. But yeah, my website, michaelshahan.com.
Wonderful. Michael's also a fantastic follow on Instagram and on the threads. So do connect with him there. Lots of great material going back many years now. So
sure.
That's what I got, TJ. Officially awesome still. Michael, thrilled to have you. And I'm Jeff Cook.
Thanks.
And who you aren't. Just isn't interesting.